Greetings, my friends. I want to thank you all for subscribing. I want to thank all of my channel members for supporting me in this endeavor to save pop culture. And if you are not subscribed, please consider supporting this channel. We need you. Thank you. My friends, this is an epic day in the war to save pop culture when it finally appears that Disney is being called to account for its financial losses and alleged lies regarding the performance of their streaming service, Disney+. I can't tell you how many times I've asked friends of mine who have expertise in fiscal and stock market matters, why don't the stockholders rise up and protest against Disney acting counter to their interests? Why is it that stockholders don't sue Disney when they see Disney sacrificing stockholder profits and audience share by mouthing off on political matters, inserting controversial agendas into their children's programming, pissing off half the country, and then making lousy content for the other half, defiling their own IPs, and it seems to many fans such as myself, willfully ignoring the strategies and content that would clearly bring them the greatest profits in favor of pushing extremist positions. Star Wars is a great example of this. They know damn well it's the legacy characters that generate all the interest among fans, and yet they deliberately either ignore or denigrate the original characters in place of the human bean sprouts that pass for characters in the crappiest place on Earth. Instead of righting their mistakes, they're doubling down these days with another movie about the amazing Wonder Ray, the bestest ever. Basically, bending over and allowing Kennedy to take her strap onto the franchise once again. Rather than make anything that will actually interest Star Wars fans, it appears that The Mandalorian and the Favreauverse are now headed squarely for the much-hated sequel trilogy. They're turning the MCU into the MCU. They're remaking every single animated classic they can sink their claws into. They're turning Disney into one big gay parade flag over and over and over again. Disney refuses to give fans what they actually want, rather choosing to shove what Disney wants fans to want right down the fans' throats, ignoring the gagging sounds. But other than the fans, who is it that really suffers? The stockholders. It's ultimately the investors who are footing the bill for Disney's so-called free speech, losing profits as Disney tarnishes its own reputation and brand at their expense. And I've always wondered, when are stockholders going to stand up and protest against a company that is working against their interests, which is not at all what corporations were created to do? Well, those days of wondering about this are over, my friends, because at long last, the shareholders are beginning to fight back, and Disney appears to be in deep shit. Seriously deep shit. Even worse than with the Florida situation, in my opinion. According to Deadline, a class action lawsuit has been filed against Disney, Bob Chapek, Kareem Daniel, and CFO Christine McCarthy, essentially saying they lied about Disney Plus and how well Disney Plus was doing. Something that I and my spies have been questioning for years. Now at last, some angry stockholders are asking the kinds of questions that Disney really can't afford to answer.
Wow. So you're saying that Disney Plus isn't a huge success? How can that be? After all, this is the channel that brought us She-Hulk, and that Willow sequel, and Obi-Wan Kenobi, and a shitty live-action Peter Pan remake, all the time slipping queerness into every possible show that their not-at-all secret agenda can support. How could Disney Plus fail with great content like that?
Oh, it's a mystery, Harvey. Like, why didn't New Coke take off? Why didn't parents go for arsenic-coated Kellogg's cornflakes back in the 80s? Why didn't folks bite on the newly branded Lucky Charms with green clovers, pink hearts, yellow moons, and thumbtacks? Some mysteries defy human explanation, and yet, apparently, Disney Plus somehow hasn't succeeded all that well by creating shitty, woke, vandalized remakes and sequels to beloved geek myths of the past. In an article titled Disney ex-CEO Bob Chapek, CFO, hit with shareholders suit over streaming losses. Deadline reports, quote, "A shareholder is suing the former CEO Bob Chapek, along with former executive Kareem Daniel, current CFO Christine McCarthy, and the company itself, alleging violations of securities law for misleading statements about Disney Plus and the health of the streaming business." Filed on May 12th, the suit by Local 272 Labor Management Pension Fund, filed in U.S. District Court for the Central District of California, seeks a lead plaintiff for a class action representing purchasers of Disney shares between December 10th, 2020 and November 8th, 2022, when the company dramatically missed earnings guidance and the stock took a major hit after an already bumpy year. Unquote.
It appears that Disney could only deny reality for so long before a price was to be paid, and this lawsuit comes at the worst possible time for Disney, because over the past 5 days, Disney stock has lost over 10% of its value after publicly confessing they've lost 4 million subscribers and missed estimated subscriber goals by over 8 million subs. Look at that stock price.
It's in the toilet, Skull of Calderon, and I suspect it will drop even more once the details of this shareholder lawsuit are more widely known. Just look at this list of alleged transgressions against the stockholders. It's so nightmarish, it almost looks like it was crafted by Freddy Krueger, attorney at law. According to the lawsuit, which alleges that, quote, "Defendants throughout the class period made false and/or misleading statements and/or failed to disclose that 1. Disney Plus was suffering decelerating subscriber growth, losses, and cost overruns. 2. The true costs incurred in connection with Disney Plus had been concealed by Disney executives by debuting certain content intended for Disney Plus initially on Disney's legacy distribution channels and then making the shows available on Disney Plus thereafter to improperly shift costs out of the Disney Plus segment. 3. Disney had made platform distribution decisions based not on consumer preference, consumer behavior, or the desire to maximize the size of the audience for the content as represented, but based on the desire to hide the full costs of building Disney Plus's content library. And 4, Disney was not on track to achieve even the reduced 2024 Disney Plus paid global subscriber and profitability targets. Such targets were not achievable, and such estimates lacked a reasonable basis in fact. Specifically, the 39-page filing cites a November 8th earnings miss by Disney in its quarterly financial results, including a monumental operating loss of $1.47 billion for streaming. Disney also reported a decline in its average revenue per Disney Plus subscriber, unquote.
Wow. All the stuff you and your spies have talked about all these years, Doomcock. And finally, stockholders are demanding answers. We've often wondered, how can a corporation keep getting away with making decisions based on furthering the political aims of the Disney board and the CEO when those decisions are costing stockholders money?
Well, now that's not directly what the suit alleges, Harvey, because those kinds of views are hard to quantify. In other words, you can't directly measure how much money Disney lost by, say, making a shitty Star Wars show like Obi-Wan Kenobi or Book of Boba Fett. But they can certainly examine the hard data associated with these complaints, forcing Disney to open its books, scrutinizing Disney Plus's actual performance, and so on. It may come out in the trial, if a trial takes place, how Disney made its programming decisions, since those decisions are fairly relevant to the overall performance of Disney Plus. And of course, Disney pissing off the state of Florida might well be said to have impacted the growth of Disney Plus, but of course, those lawsuits related to Florida are already in progress. So basically, Disney is now in a shitload of litigation over their decisions and choices, most of which seem to me driven by agendas not by increasing profits for investors, and that is a mortal sin in the corporate realm. I suspect that Disney is increasingly in deeper and deeper shit, and they have only themselves to blame, in my opinion. Sure, the streaming model itself is terribly flawed, and the market is saturated. There's little doubt of that. But nevertheless, as a fan, I've been troubled, perplexed, and repelled by the programming choices and decisions of Disney over the last 6 years at least. And I've always wondered when Disney would finally be called to the carpet for their failures by those who had suffered from those failures the most, the investors. Well, my friends, it looks like that day has finally come.
Do you think that Disney will settle this lawsuit quickly, Doomcock, or will they fight on?
Skull of Calderon, I don't see how they could possibly stand to open their books to discovery in any lawsuit. As a skeleton yourself, I'm sure you appreciate the dangers of revealing those of your brethren hidden in closets, buried in accounting ledgers, or being held for a rainy day by disgruntled ex-employees just waiting to trot them out in a parade down Disney's Main Street amid much bunting and streamers of red tape. I suspect they'll pay through the nose to try and make this go away, to keep any possible skeletons out of the public eye, perhaps even having some kind of criminal liability. I have no idea. I'm not a lawyer, but I can promise you, we'll be watching these developments with great interest indeed. From the center of the earth, this is Dictor Van Doomcock bidding you all, my friends, stay angry. Ha 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 ha.